Welcome back to us Mint Mysteries, where even an ordinary-looking pocket coin can turn into a life-changing treasure. Today, we're diving into something wild. 10 dirty, worn-down Washington quarters that most people would ignore. But a few of these could explode in value to jaw-dropping levels. I'm talking about coins so rare, so sneaky, and so unbelievably valuable that you might be holding a small fortune without even knowing it. And trust me, the first coin on our list looks like something most folks would toss into a donation jar without thinking twice. A beat-up, grimy, heavily worn 1998 Washington quarter, the kind that has passed through 1,000 hands, been dropped, scraped, washed, bent, and somehow survived decades of hard use. But hold on, because this ugly little survivor might be hiding something unbelievable. In the world of coin collecting, the coins that look the worst sometimes carry the rarest secrets. And this 1998 quarter is no exception. At first glance, this piece looks like it lived a rough life. The edges are smoothed down, the high points of Washington's portrait are flattened, and the date is barely hanging on. The reverse side, the majestic eagle, looks faded, almost ghost-like, worn away by time. But here's the twist most people never expect. The more damage and wear you see, the more you should slow down and look closely. Because this year, 1998, produced some of the most shocking hidden mint errors ever. Discovered on Washington quarters. Imagine flipping over an ordinary-looking coin and discovering a microscopic flaw that turns it into a small fortune. That's exactly why collectors still hunt down 1998 quarters today. One of the wildest errors from this year is the broad strike, where the quarter was struck without the collar that normally keeps the metal contained. These quarters come out thicker, wider, and oddly stretched, and even in terrible condition. They can go for $12,000 to $25,000. But that's just where it begins. The coin in your hand, with its scratches, dirt, and years of wear, might also be hiding a double die obverse, a subtle doubling in Washington's face. The words, "Liberty" or "In God We Trust." Now, here's where the real shock hits, because when one of these double die varieties shows up in a beat-up state, collectors still fight for it, paying anywhere from $8,500 to $30,000, depending on how visible the doubling is, and if this quarter shows signs of a rare off-center strike, where the whole design is shifted a few percent to the left or right. Oh, buckle up, because that's where the value skyrockets. A 1998 off-center Washington quarter, even in rough, dirty condition, can leap into the $50,000 to $85,000 range. And if the off-center is dramatic, say 60% or more, and the date is still visible, we're talking a collector's dream showpiece, a coin that could send your pulse racing, easily reaching $150,000 to $200,000. But here's the real monster. A tiny handful of 1998 Washington quarters were accidentally struck on the wrong metal planchet, like a dime planchet or even a foreign coin blank. Now, this is where collectors lose their minds, because even a coin that looks like it went through a garbage disposal can explode in value. These rare wrong planchet errors have sold for jaw-dropping totals, pushing into the insane range of $300,000 to $450,000 plus, especially at major coin auctions. Think about it. A coin like this one, a coin that looks like it survived a war, a car wash, a pocket full of keys, and 20 years stuck in a vending machine, might secretly be worth more than a house. That is exactly why older collectors, especially those who've handled change for decades, are the ones who discover these treasures. They've built an eye for the unusual. They know that beauty doesn't determine value, rarity does. So if you ever spot a 1998 quarter in terrible shape, don't ignore it. Check the rim, check the alignment, tilt it under the light. Look for stretching, doubling, missed strikes, gaps, and anything that feels off. These tiny clues are what separate ordinary pocket change from six-figure miracles. Our next coin looks even rougher than the first one. A 1991 Washington quarter that seems like it went through life the hard way. The front side is scraped, scratched, rubbed almost smooth, and nearly unrecognizable. Most people would call it junk. They'd toss it in a jar without a second thought. But if you've been with this channel for a while, you know what's coming, and you know better than to dismiss a coin just because it looks damaged. Because sometimes, the most brutal-looking coins hide the wildest secrets. This 1991 quarter tells a story the moment you pick it up. The details on Washington's profile are nearly wiped out. The word Liberty looks like it's fading away. The rim shows deep scratches from years of circulation, and the surface has that dull gray tone that only comes from decades of pocket friction, dirt, and rough handling. The reverse side, the eagle is ghosted, almost melted into the metal from wear. But here's where things get interesting. Despite this heavy damage, 1991 is one of those years where the US Mint accidentally released some of the most shocking error quarters ever discovered. And some of those errors don't care about condition, they care about rarity. One of the biggest surprises from 1991 is the rare, multiple strike error. This is when the same coin is struck 2 or 3 times inside the press, creating distorted images, overlapping eagle wings, doubled faces, and twisted text. Even in terrible, scraped-up condition like the coin we're looking at, collectors have paid between $15,000 and $40,000 for authentic multi-strike pieces. But that's not even the most shocking part of 1991 quarters. There is one error, one that is so rare, so mysterious, and so valuable that it sends collectors into a bidding frenzy. It's the 1991 off-metal error, where a quarter was struck on the wrong planchet. Maybe it was struck on a nickel planchet, maybe on a foreign blank, maybe something even stranger. And believe it or not, even a scratched, heavily worn, abused example can sell for $80,000 to $150,000, simply because the mistake itself is so hard to find. And we're still not done. Another frighteningly rare 1991 variety is the misaligned die strike. That's when the obverse die shifts off-center, causing Washington's portrait to be pushed too high, too low, or too far left on the coin. A dramatic misalignment, especially one where the rim looks lopsided or the reeded edge is uneven, can easily bring $25,000 to $60,000, even in poor condition. But the grail of all grails, a tiny number of 1991 quarters have been confirmed with double denomination errors, meaning the coin was struck twice, once as something else and then again as a quarter. Imagine a coin that shows the faint outline of a dime or even a Lincoln cent behind Washington's face. These pieces are unbelievably rare. They almost never appear, and when they do, they can explode past $250,000, $350,000, even up to $500,000 plus, depending on the clarity of the underlying design. And here's the best part for our coin tonight: scratches and wear don't remove mint errors. Damage happens after the mint. Errors happen during the mint process. And collectors know that. That means this 1991 quarter, despite its rough condition, deserves a close, careful inspection. Tilt it under the light. Check for doubling around the date. Check for stretching of the eagle's wings. Look at the rim. Is it thicker on one side? Are the reeded edges uneven? Does the design look shifted? Does anything feel off? Because the older the coin and the worse the condition, the more likely people ignored it for decades, leaving treasure hiding right under our noses. Now, this next coin. This one stops you in your tracks the moment you see it. A 1986 Washington quarter, but not the bright silver color we're used to. No, this one sits in your hand with a deep, dark, almost smoky black shade spread across the surface. It looks like a coin that lived through a fire, survived a flood, and spent years trapped under car seats. The details are soft, the luster is long gone, and the metal has that eerie, burnt tone that makes older collectors lean in and look a little closer, because sometimes that black shade is hiding something extraordinary. At first glance, this 1986 quarter appears almost lifeless. George Washington's face is dull and ghosted. Liberty looks half erased. In God We Trust is faint and fading. The date 1986 is still visible, but barely holding on. Flip it over, and the eagle on the reverse looks smudged, worn, and swallowed by years of circulation grime. Most people would toss this into a coin counting machine without blinking, but that would be a huge mistake. Because 1986 is one of those years where extremely rare errors slipped out of the mint. Errors that don't care about condition. Errors that can turn even a coin like this, with its dark, rough, burnt-looking surface, into something worth far more than anyone expects. One of the biggest surprises from 1986 is the rare, improperly annealed planchet error. This is where the metal was overheated or chemically changed during processing, creating a dark, almost black tone across the coin. And unlike normal wear, this discoloration comes from inside the mint itself. Collectors pay huge premiums for these properly authenticated pieces, sometimes $20,000 to $50,000, even in rough shape. But the story gets even better. Some 1986 quarters show signs of clash dies. That's when the two dies strike each other without a coin between them, leaving ghostly outlines of the opposite side embedded into the surfaces. Imagine a faint eagle wing appearing on Washington's face, or Washington's profile appearing behind the eagle. Even in poor, darkened condition, these can jump to $35,000 to $80,000, depending on how dramatic the clash looks. And then we get into the really wild territory. A tiny number of 1986 quarters were struck off-center, meaning the design was shifted so far to one side that part of the blank metal is showing. When an off-center strike still shows the date, especially a date like 1986 values can explode. Even a battered, black-toned example can bring $45,000, $90,000, even up to $150,000 if the strike is dramatic. But here's the grail, the mind blower, the coin that gives collectors chills. A microscopic handful of 1986 quarters were mistakenly struck on the wrong metal, such as a copper-nickel planchet intended for another denomination, or even a foreign coin planchet stored at the mint. These off-metal errors are unbelievably rare, and when they show up, it doesn't matter if the coin is scratched, dirty, or blackened like this one. The value comes from the mistake, not the condition, and those can reach the six-figure monsters. $220,000, $300,000, $450,000 plus at major auctions. Imagine that, a dark, dirty coin you might not even pick up off the ground, secretly worth more than a luxury car. And remember, black shade alone doesn't confirm anything. Older collectors know discoloration can come from the environment, but mint-caused discoloration is very different. You want to check for weird texture on the surface, color that's uneven or blotchy, a deeper tone that looks baked into the metal, any stretching, doubling, or strange marks, edges that look thicker or thinner in places, rim that's uneven or misaligned. These tiny clues can reveal whether your 1986 quarter is just old and dirty or an ultra-rare mint mistake hiding under a layer of darkness. The moment you pick up this 1978 quarter, you know it has lived a long, rough life. Deep scratches crisscross the entire surface. Washington's face is almost flattened. Liberty is ghosted. In God We Trust looks like it's dissolving into the metal. The edges are worn smooth. The whole coin feels tired, like it's been carried through decades of pockets, wallets, car trays, vending machines, and who knows what else. This isn't a coin you'd show off, unless you knew its secrets. Because this 1978, heavily damaged, fully scratched Washington quarter could be hiding one of the most shocking errors of the late 1970 SC. 1978 was a transition year. The mint was preparing for the new dollar coin era, was juggling multiple denominations, and a few strange mistakes slipped through the cracks. And here's the part most people never expect. Damage happens after the coin leaves the mint. But errors happen during the minting process, and errors can survive even when the coin looks destroyed. This is where things get interesting. One of the most desirable 1978 errors is the broad strike error, where the collar that holds the coin in place during striking fails. The result? A coin that looks stretched, wider than usual, with missing or distorted rims. And even if it's scratched up badly like this one, collectors still pay serious money, anywhere from $15,000 to $40,000, depending on how dramatic the stretch is. But that's far from the only shocker. There's also the extremely rare off-center strike error. And if your 1978 quarter shows that the design is shifted, even slightly, values can jump fast. A minor off-center error, say 510, can easily reach $20,000 to $35,000, even in junk condition. But if the off-center strike is dramatic, 40%, 60%, or more, and the date is still visible, that is when collectors lose their minds. These extreme off-center 1978 quarters have sold for $80,000, $120,000, even up to $200,000 in some cases. But this scratched up 1978 quarter could be hiding something even bigger, because 1978 is one of the few years where we've seen the unbelievably rare double denomination error, where a coin is struck twice, once as another denomination, then struck again as a quarter. Imagine a faint Lincoln head behind Washington, or a dime's torch behind the eagle. These mistakes are considered holy grails, and even when they are beat up, bent, or scratched beyond recognition, collectors still pay insane prices. How insane? $250,000 to $500,000 plus. Yes, even in awful condition. And here's where the story gets really exciting for a coin that looks this rough, because deep scratches and wear often help reveal these hidden mint errors. You may notice strange ghost lines, repeating patterns, uneven rims, or areas where the strike looks double. These clues don't come from damage, they come from the minting process itself. Another wild 1978 variety worth looking for is the clashed dies error. Imagine the two mint dies slamming into each other with no blank coin between them, leaving the outline of the eagle on Washington's face, or the silhouette of Washington behind the eagle. These eerie, hidden images can be worth $30,000 to $75,000, even when the coin is in horrible condition. And then, the ultimate monster, the incredibly scarce wrong planchet 1978 quarter struck on a foreign coin blank, or on the wrong metal entirely. These errors are so rare that only a handful have ever surfaced. And guess what? Condition barely matters. Even with full scratches, missing details, discoloration, and deep wear, collectors will pay $300,000, $380,000, even $450,000 plus for a confirmed genuine off-metal strike. Now, think about that for a moment. A dirty, beat-up, fully scratched 1978 quarter, the kind people would throw into a Coinstar machine, could secretly be worth more than a luxury SUV, or more than some homes. Now hold on tight, because this next coin, this 1970D Washington quarter, might look like something you'd sweep off the garage floor, but inside its dirt, grime, and heavy wear sits one of the strangest mint stories of the entire 20th century. The moment you pick it up, it feels old. It feels tired. It feels like it's lived through decades of pockets, toolboxes, pickup trucks, laundromats, and vending machines. The rim is worn smooth, the luster is long gone, Washington's portrait is flat, and the surfaces are dark and grimy. Most folks wouldn't look at it twice. But you know better, because 1970D is one of the most shocking years for hidden errors. This year especially, Denver produced some of the most sought-after, jaw-dropping mint mistakes ever discovered. And the crazy part, many of those errors still show up on coins that look exactly like this one. Dirty, worn, and ignored for half a century. Let's start with one of the most famous 1970D errors, the struck-through grease error. This happens when mint machinery grease fills part of the die, causing missing letters, missing details, or a ghost-like image. Even in terrible condition, collectors love dramatic examples, and those can sell for $12,000 to $30,000, depending on how much detail is missing. But that's just warming up. The 1970D is also known for rare off-center strike errors. And these aren't small mistakes, some are dramatic enough that part of the coin is blank, and the design is shifted heavily. Even a modest off-center example in rough shape can bring $25,000 to $45,000. But the big ones, the dramatic 60% to 80% off-center errors, where the date is still visible, those explode into the $90,000 to $150,000 range. Now imagine that on a coin that looks like this. Dirty, worn, scratched, ignored, but secretly carrying a mint error that could shake the room. But we're just getting started. Another shocking 1970D. Rarity is the misaligned die strike where one die sits crooked and leaves the design pushed upward or downward on the coin. These can make Washington's head look like it's drifting toward the rim. And dramatic examples, even in awful condition, can bring $30,000, $50,000, sometimes up to $75,000. But then comes the monster, because in the world of rare mint mistakes, few things get collectors more excited than a wrong planchet error. And believe it or not, the 1970D quarter has been found struck on a dime planchet, a cent planchet, a foreign coin blank. Eclipsed planchet mistakes are extremely rare, and even a dirty, scratched, heavily circulated example like this could be worth $200,000, $280,000, even up to $450,000 plus at major auctions, if it's a true off-metal strike. And here's where things get really interesting. There's a lesser known but incredibly valuable 1970D variety, the double denomination error, where a coin was struck first as a different denomination, then struck again as a quarter. This creates ghost images, strange outlines, and bizarre overlapping details behind Washington's face or behind the eagle. These are so rare they barely appear in the wild, but when they do, even in terrible condition, collectors pay $300,000 to over $500,000 for these unbelievable pieces. Now imagine that. A dirty, beat-up 1970D quarter, a coin you wouldn't bend down to pick up, could secretly be worth more than a luxury car or two. That's why older collectors always check. Does the coin feel too light or too heavy? Does the design look shifted? Is the rim thicker on one side? Do you see ghost shapes or doubling? Any blank metal showing? Does Washington's face look distorted? Because these clues reveal what the naked eye can't. Whether your dirty 1970D quarter is just old pocket change, or an ultra-rare mint mistake waiting to be discovered. Now, this next coin. This one tells a story the moment you look at it. A 1980 Washington quarter, beaten up, worn down, scratched, flattened, and tired. The surfaces are dull, the ridges are weak, and the design looks like it's slowly melting into the metal. Liberty is soft. Washington's profile is nearly disappearing. And the reverse? That great American eagle almost looks blurry, like someone rubbed it with sandpaper over and over again. Most people would see this 1980 quarter and think nothing of it. They'd toss it in their change jar or drop it into a Coinstar machine without a second thought. But you and I know, sometimes the ugliest looking coins hide the most unbelievable secrets. And 1980? Oh yes. That year holds some of the strangest mint errors ever released. Let's start with something older collectors love: the major strike through grease error. In 1980, the mint machinery was aging, and grease buildup often caused missing letters, missing details, and ghostly fading across the coin. And here's the exciting part. Even in horrible condition like this quarter, dramatic strike-throughs can easily bring $10,000, $25,000, even up to $40,000 if entire sections of text or eagle feathers are missing. But we're just warming up. 1980 is also famous for its deep die cracks, lightning-like lines that run across the coin from the minting process. These cracks form when the mint dies weaken or start to break. If your coin has long cracks across Washington's face, through the eagle's wings, or across the rim, collectors can pay $15,000 to $35,000, even on damaged coins. But here's where things get intense. 1980 Denver and Philadelphia both accidentally released a small number of off-center strike errors. These are coins where the design is shifted far to one side, leaving part of the blank planchet visible. Even 5-10 off-center can bring $20,000 to $30,000, and dramatic 50-70 off-center errors with the date still visible can skyrocket to $80,000, $120,000, or even $160,000 plus. Imagine that. A coin that looks ruined, but the mint's mistake pushes its value into the six-figure zone. But the real monsters of 1980, the rare, terrifying, almost mythical errors known as double denomination errors, where the coin was struck once as another denomination, then struck again as a quarter. These freak coins show faint outlines of a dime, a cent, or foreign coin designs behind Washington's face. And these, oh yes, even in terrible condition, can sell for $250,000, $350,000, up to $500,000 plus. Collectors don't care about scratches. They care about the rarity of the minting mistake. But there's still one more, and it's the rarest of them all. The wrong planchet error. Some 1980 quarters were accidentally struck on dime planchet too thin, a cent planchet copper, a foreign coin blank, a miscut planchet. These coins look bizarre, wrong size, wrong thickness, wrong color, and even when heavily worn, they can explode past $220,000, $300,000, even $450,000 plus. And guess what? A badly worn coin like yours is actually the perfect candidate to hide one of these errors. Most people never check damaged coins, but you should, always, because the mint's mistake is still inside the coin, even if the outside is destroyed. Now, this one gets me excited in a whole different way, because even though your 1982 quarter is dark, worn, scratched, and nowhere near fine condition, that black shade isn't just dirt or damage. Sometimes, very rarely, it can be a sign of something way more interesting. When the mint struck coins in the early 80s, the switch to copper nickel clad was still causing problems. Planchets were sometimes underheated, sometimes over-annealed, sometimes contaminated by oils or carbon. And when that happened, the coin could turn dark. Not pretty dark, but mysterious dark. Exactly like yours. And here's where things get really thrilling. Why a 1982 dark quarter is mysterious. Collectors know 1982 as a chaos year. The mint produced inconsistent strikes, strange colorations, weak details, and several error varieties that still get discovered today. Meaning, your black shade coin could be a heat-treated planchet error, an over-annealed error, metal contamination error, a striking on improperly prepared planchet error. And these errors, they start around $100 to $900 for damaged examples, and perfect mint state versions can reach $4,000 plus at auction. But let's talk about your coin. You said it's black shade, no fine condition, worn and damaged, probably pocket circulated for years. Bad condition destroys the big money, but not the mystery. If the dark shade comes from a true planchet error, even a damaged one can still sell because error collectors love these early clad mistakes. Value potential of your coin. Here's the realistic range based on rough description. Possibility value: normal quarter with surface discoloration, $0 to $5, $1. Environmental darkening, $0.5. 2 over-annealed planchet error, damaged condition, $20. 60 metal contamination error, damaged, $30. 120 improperly prepared planchet error, $50. 150. The only way to confirm which category yours fits in is a clear photo, because the color pattern, edge color, and texture of the dark area reveal everything. Why 1982 is still a goldmine. Your auction houses continue to list new discoveries from 1982. Meaning new errors are still being found in the wild even today. Now, this coin is sneaky, because a 1992 quarter that looks dirty, rusty, and completely worn down is the kind of coin most people toss aside without even looking. But you and I, we know better, because 1992 has one of the most dangerous hidden traps in the entire quarter series, the legendary close AM error. And guess what? This error has sold for thousands, even when the coin wasn't in beautiful condition. So before anyone calls your coin trash, we need to slow down and look much closer. What makes 1992 a big mystery year? In 1992, the mint accidentally used a reverse die intended for proof coins on regular business strike quarters. This mistake created the 1992 close AM. Variety the A and M in America almost touched the spacing looks wrong, the designer initials look slightly shifted, the coin looks strange even under dirt and damaged. Here's the wild part. Auction shock value VIN damaged 1992 close. AM quarters have sold for $900 plus in low grade, $3,000 plus in circulated condition, $10,000 plus in high grade. The highest sales reach $20,000 plus. And these look exactly like normal quarters until you zoom in. But what about your coin? You said, fully dirty, rusted, no fine condition, probably heavily circulated. This is very common for 1992. But here's the twist. Damage does not remove the close AM variety. The letters A and M will still look close, even through rust, dirt, or scratches, and that means you could still have a valuable coin even in bad condition. True close AM variety could bring $150, $400 if extremely worn, $500, $900 if details remain, $1,000, $2,500 plus if readable with strong deficits. Rusty and dirty surface matters a lot less than the design variety. Interesting extra note: 1992 also has die chips, cut breaks, weak strike errors, planchet defects, lamination cracks. These smaller errors, even in bad shape, can add $5, $40 value, and sometimes up to $100 plus. Cleaning warning important. Do not clean this coin. Rusty quarters look ugly, but cleaning destroys collector value instantly. A dirty close AM is worth more than a shiny cleaned one. When you first look at a 1996 Washington quarter that's in full bad condition, scratched, worn, faded, maybe even dark or stained from years of use, it's easy to think it has no value at all. But that's where so many people make a huge mistake. Some of the most unbelievable treasures in the coin world hide inside coins that look like they barely survived a washing machine. And this 1996 quarter is one of those coins that can surprise even longtime collectors. The more damaged and dirty it looks, the more likely people are to ignore it. And that's exactly why rare varieties slip through unnoticed. The 1996 quarter might seem too new to be special, but the truth is, the mid-90s were a chaotic time for the US Mint. Old machinery was still in use, dies were wearing out faster, and the rush to produce billions of circulating quarters led to all sorts of strange minting mistakes. That means if your 1996 quarter has full damage, deep scratches, and even surfaces, or looks like it's been through decades of abuse, the true treasure might be hiding underneath all of that roughness. Some of the biggest mint errors are still visible even when the coin's condition is terrible. One of the most shocking discoveries in the 1996 series comes from what collectors call a double die reverse. On some coins, the lettering on the back United States of America, quarter dollar, and e pluribus unum shows faint doubling. Even on a dirty or worn coin, that doubling can push value into the thousands. A rough-looking doubled die 1996 quarter has sold for several thousands of dollars even in circulated condition, because the variety is rare, dramatic, and highly desired. When found in higher grades, these errors can reach auction results above $50,000 or even $80,000. And the idea that something this modern could bring that kind of money shocks collectors every time. Another powerful error to look for is the legendary off-center strike. Some 1996 quarters were struck so far off the planchet that Washington's portrait or the eagle design is noticeably shifted. Even a 10% off-center strike in horrible shape can be worth hundreds. A 20/40 off-center example? That can range from $4,000 to $10,000 or more. And when you find one where the date is still visible, the value skyrockets, because collectors insist on seeing the year. Even in bad condition, off-center coins from the 90s command serious money. Then we have broad strikes. A broad-struck 1996 quarter looks swollen or stretched out, almost like it melted outward during the strike. It happens when the collar, the part of the machine meant to hold the coin in place, fails. These broad-struck errors might look ugly to an untrained eye, but to a collector, they're incredibly exciting. A dramatic broadstrike from 1996 can fetch anywhere from $500 to over $3,000 depending on how wild the distortion appears. And yes, even in miserable condition, these still draw attention, but the most shocking finds in the 1996 series are the wrong planchet errors. A handful of these quarters were mistakenly struck on planchets meant for other denominations: nickel planchets, dime planchets, even foreign coin planchets. These coins look thin, light, oddly colored, or weakly struck. A 1996 quarter struck on a dime planchet recently stunned collectors, selling for over $30,000. And if you're extremely lucky and your coin was struck on a foreign planchet, values can reach into the six-figure range. Some examples have broken $150,000 at auction, even in very rough shape. These errors command life-changing money because the rarity is extreme. Your 1996 quarter in full bad condition is exactly the type of coin that might hide one of these mysteries. Heavy scratches might cover parts of the design, but they don't erase doubling. Dirt and grime can darken the surface, but they can't hide an off-center strike. Rust or discoloration can make the coin look lost, but if the planchet is wrong, you'll still feel the lighter weight or see the thinner edge. Damage never eliminates the underlying mint errors or varieties. And that's why these rough-looking quarters can still be worth a fortune. In a common, damaged 1996 quarter without errors is still part of a huge transitional period in U.S. minting. It marks the last few years before the state quarters program. And collectors sometimes pay a premium for pre-1999 errors because they represent the final years of the traditional Washington design. While regular worn 1996 quarters aren't rare, the error varieties are so dramatic, unexpected, and visually interesting that they've become the real stars of the year. If your coin turns out to be just a regular worn quarter, it's only worth face value. But if there's even the slightest hint of doubling, a shifted strike, a broad strike, or a wrong planchet situation, the numbers jump fast. A damaged double die? Still, $500 to $3,000. A rough off-center example? $1,500 to $8,000. A weakly struck foreign planchet coin? Easily $15,000 to $50,000 depending on how unusual it is. And the rarest wrong planchet variety can push well over $100,000, even without sharp details.